would be the opposite. Wants to make sure water stays in the body. This is going to come back to us a lot. ADH, antidiuretic hormone, is going to come back a lot in the upcoming chapters. Those hormones of my anterior pituitary. So now I've had the ones from the hypothalamus either being releasing or inhibiting, or my oxytocin and my antidiuretic hormone. Anterior pituitary. Remember how I said gonads? All right. 2 of the hormones in my anterior pituitary are termed gonadotropins because they target the ovaries and the testes. It is my follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, the follicle stimulating hormone. And that is a sex hormone for both ovaries and testes. Okay? So it goes to the testes to work in one way and the ovaries to work in the way that they do for the ovaries. Luteinizing hormone, LH. In females, it stimulates ovulation, and then when that egg is released, the follicle becomes what we know as the corpus luteum. When an egg is released, the goal, because remember, all of this within the body is simply survival, okay? Yeah, we have other things we do on the outside of the body to control it, okay? But in the grand scheme of things, reproducing of the species is one of the things that the body wants to do for survival, just like getting food and water. So when an egg gets released, the goal is for that egg to get fertilized and prepare the uterus to support it so that the offspring can develop. So when that egg is spit out of the follicle to make its way to the tubes, the fallopian tubes, that follicle in the ovary kind of takes on this really interesting appearance, and it produces progesterone. Because progesterone makes the lining of the uterus thicker so that when the fertilized egg by the sperm reaches it, it can support that for the growth of the offspring. If the egg doesn't get fertilized, we shed it, which we know as the period, the menstruation for the female. In males, luteinizing hormone stimulates the testes to secrete testosterone so that the sperm can develop to go fertilize the egg that got released. It's all about propagation of the species. The remaining 4 hormones, they're going to target different tissues. We have our thyroid stimulating hormone, also known as thyrotropin. That is to stimulate the growth of the thyroid gland and secretion of thyroid hormone. ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. We also know this as corticotropin. It targets my adrenal cortex, and that's going to have quite a few effects. PRL is prolactin. That's the time that we need it. Shouldn't happen at other times. The time we need it is when the mother gives birth and needs to feed the offspring. So it's for lactation. Plays a part in the mammary glands functioning. Growth hormone, also known as somatotropin, because it's for the entire body. It is the most produced hormone because it's used everywhere, all the time, 24/7 pretty much, of the anterior pituitary, and it has widespread effects. Very similar to what you'll see with the thyroid hormone. So this would be our representation of my hypothalamo-pituitary target organ relationship. That little kidney bean sized gland sitting in the sella turcica of the cranial bones gets to do all of this by way of the hypothalamus controlling it. My anterior and then my posterior dealing with oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. Have we missed anything in the body? It's going to get control.
Heart?
The heart is going to have hormones that it produces.
The heart produces its own hormones.
Yep. The posterior pituitary, once again, there's a nerve connection by way of the tracts, TRACTs. Therefore, the actual hormone is made in the hypothalamus. It travels to the posterior pituitary for storage. Antidiuretic hormone is also known as vasopressin. Have you ever heard of that before? Because there's a medication named after it. What is that medication used for? Anybody know?
I'm assuming it was an antidiuretic.
Well, high blood pressure. Whoa, wait a minute. Antidiuretic hormone, also known as vasopressin, which is the same name for a medication that treats a blood pressure problem. What did I just tell you guys? What is antidiuretic hormone going to play a huge factor in controlling in our body?
Blood pressure.
It's going to affect the fluid of the blood, which is going to affect the load on the heart, which will in turn affect blood pressure. If you know anything about blood pressure, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, because you can have either one, okay? But high blood pressure is very detrimental to the body under chronic conditions. Antidiuretic hormone, in the normal scheme of things, antidiuretic hormone and the body itself can control any type of blood pressure issues. It's when blood pressure becomes chronic that we have to begin to look at other measures, such as medication. So antidiuretic hormone, its goal, make sure we keep water in the body. So therefore it will act on the kidneys. By acting on the kidneys, we reduce our volume of urine that gets produced, because it will return the majority of the components, the water, the electrolytes, the materials. It'll return it to the body so that we don't lose it when we go urinate. The goal is to make sure that we're keeping the load on the heart to beat correctly. So antidiuretic is going to come back to us when we talk about cardiovascular and when we talk about the urinary. So it's going to be coming back to us in a couple of systems. Oxytocin, like I said, it has a huge range, okay? Most of it is to deal with reproduction. Both sexes have it. It used to be that, it was thought that women were the only ones with oxytocin. However, it plays a part in both sexes, just in a different form, because of the way the male body has to make it. All right? It's a very interesting process. And childbirth, it does stimulate, one of the biggest things about it, the labor contractions, and it does help with the flow of milk in the mammary gland. So those are the hormones for hypothalamus, anterior pituitary, and posterior pituitary, all separated out between the three. Any questions so far? Okay. So what we're going to do for today